More new plastic armour for the Space Marines today? Let's talk about the shiny new rendition of the Sicaran Battle Tank and its rules in 40k. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today we're talking about Games Workshop's latest model reveal, a brand new Sicaran Battle Tank, fairly faithfully recreated from the Forge World model that has gone out of production, though the variant Sicarans still are at present. Today I thought we'd talk about the model and the details that we know about it, and then go over its current rules in Warhammer 40k. So this plastic Sicaran kit isn't really all that much of a surprise. The Horus Heresy release theme seems to be that a lot of the most popular Forge World kits are going to be making the transition from resin to plastic, quite a lot of a nicer material to work with, and also actually might be a rare case of Games Workshop significantly reducing some prices for people. Forge World resin is on another level even compared with standard Games Workshop stuff. A whole bunch of the more popular Forge World resin kits appear to have gone away over the last few months, kits that they'd really have no reason to retire unless they were redoing them in plastic, and the Sicaran was certainly prominent among them. It seems very likely that we're also going to be getting a revamped Leviathan Dreadnought at some stage. I really wouldn't be too surprised if that's revealed fairly shortly. In any case, this new shiny plastic version of the Sicaran Battle Tank appears to be just a reimagining of the main battle tank. The Sicaran series has a whole ton of different options. There's the Ignores line of sight Arcus, the tank hunting Venator, the anti-infantry Punisher, and the massive plasma weapon that is the Omega. Games Workshop hasn't mentioned any of those other versions, so I'm guessing that this one only has the autocannons for the main battle tank version, and the other versions do appear to still be present and correct on the Forge World web store. Still there and all very expensive at over £90. It looks like this one will just be fielded in the standard configuration with the Heracles pattern autocannons, much bigger than the autocannons that you'd find just about anywhere else. I guess I'm not really too surprised at that choice. Having one weapon swap isn't the worst thing in the world, say for the Predator tanks, but being able to swap out between another 4 different massive guns really would have created quite a lot of waste on the kit, I guess. I suppose it might not be too hard to kit bash some of the others if you could find yourself some spare parts or 3D printed alternatives. Otherwise, it's got a bunch of sponson weapons. It has the standard las cannons that you can see on the main kit and heavy bolters that you can see here on the circular pattern heresy sponsons. But it also seems to add a couple of new options, at least compared with the current Forge World kit. It comes with Volkite Culverin and Heavy Flamer sponson options. It seems like those are going to be a default on all the Heresy vehicles, and I wonder if at some point they might update the 40k rules to allow you to fill those too. Finally, it's also going to have a hefty amount of pintle weapon options too. It looks like they might have just a generic pintle mounted weapons option that you can put onto several different vehicles. These ones seem very similar to the options that you have in the Deimos pattern Rhino. Various different combi weapons, a Havoc launcher, a multi-melter and a heavy flamer. Even if the turret's set, then between all of those other different weapon options you've got quite a lot of choice. You could build a really dedicated anti-tank gun platform with las cannons and a multi-melter, or focus on the anti-infantry duties with the Volkite Culverins and a combi bolter maybe. Otherwise the tank is also armed with a hull-mounted heavy bolter too, so in general it is a fairly meaty and threatening tank. Comparing the new Sicaran against the old resin kit, it really does seem like a pretty faithful rendition of the same tank. Even looking really quite closely at the details from the resin kits to the plastic one, there isn't really all that much that's changed. I think maybe they must just have decided that they wanted to recreate that resin kit just exactly the way it was before, and I can see why, to be honest. I think as Games Workshop tanks go, the Sicaran Battle Tank is one of the coolest looking. It looks pretty dynamic, fast, and genuinely threatening, while still having all the 40k trappings that's going to make it look at home next to things like Predators. I guess it's good news if you already owned one of these or multiple of them, as the new one looks like it'll fit in fairly well at home with the rest. As well as receiving a fair amount of new rules for Heresy with the new edition, the Sicaran Battle Tank does already have rules for 40k, so you can already field them now if you want to. In game, a Sicaran Battle Tank has a base cost of 165 points, though you do have to pay for the hull-mounted heavy bolter, which brings it up to 180. It's a heavy support choice for Codex Space Marines, and it has a fair few interesting things on its stat line. It's got a 14-inch move, so it's faster than the vast majority of tanks, and fairly decent defense too for how much it costs at 14 wounds and a 2+ armor save. Being both fast and tough are pretty decent advantages. That 2+ armor save has become particularly interesting post Armor of Contempt. It means that you'd be saving things like las cannons on a 4+ now. kind of mitigating previous weaknesses of not having an invul save. Weapons wise, those Heracles pattern autocannons are pretty general purpose. They've got a 48-inch range, strength 7, AP -2 and damage 3, and fire with 6 shots each shooting phase. It does feel like a bit of a jack of all trades, master of none weapon. It'll guarantee you at least some damage against hordes and some against heavies, though it's going to struggle against the toughest armour and certainly against high saves. I guess something like units with poor saves or high invuls and 3 wounds will be quite a good target, maybe things like Harlequin Skyweaver jet bikes or things like Drakari Raiders. It does have its advantages that make it stand out a bit compared with other Space Marine armour, but it does have problems too. As a non-core gun platform, it will be struggling to compete against things like Redemptor Dreadnoughts, pretty much the go-to gun turret for Space Marines at the moment. It does have the Martial Legacy and Relic keyword, so it would cost you 1 command point to include in your army. If that teaser about starting command points going down comes to pass later in the year, then things with this rule could certainly suffer. And just within competition with the other Sicaran variants, I would probably argue that the main Sicaran Battle Tank is actually probably one of the weakest. The Arcus was kind of easily the most popular as a to the last choice that you could have hunker down on an objective while plinking away some fire, though I do wonder if people might reconsider versus other options now barrage weapons have been nerfed a bit. Out of the other ones though, the Punisher is cheaper and does deal with hordes fairly well, but I think you could certainly argue that it's fairly outcompeted by the Omega version, the one with the massive plasma cannon, as that one again gets 6 shots, but makes them at strength 9, AP -3 and damage 3, meaning it's far better at dealing with heavy armour, and even just things like Space Marines or Terminators with decent saves. The Omega does cost a little bit more though, and it does give you a chance of giving you mortal wounds with the plasma weapon, so I guess there might be some debate. I guess it's not impossible that Games Workshop might reissue a few 40k datasheets with their new models coming out, but I think there's also a pretty reasonable chance that they just leave off until whenever they do another Imperial Armour Compendium, which might not come out till 10th edition. Still though, until then I'm sure a fair few people will be tempted to experiment with one in the army. It is quite a cool model, and with its speed and toughness it does have some advantages over some of the other gun platforms. So let me know what you think then. Would you be tempted to pick up a Sicaran tank now it's coming out in plastic? And could you find yourself being tempted by its 40k rules now it's a fair bit tougher with Armour of Contempt? Let me know as always down in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, or I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming, with new ones out just about every day. Finally, if you have been enjoying the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page, and you can find that down in the video description. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some really big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.